Welcome back to another episode of Exiled Strangers. And if you couldn't tell based on the music, we're going to be talking about Gideon today. And
Yeah,
Gideon is metal.
yeah,
He is
yeah,
metal. How you doing,
absolutely.
nobody?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm excited about this reading tonight. Gideon's it's one of those stories I think gets overlooked in so many ways, and I think it is applicable to today's times now. So,
Absolutely. And our nonprofit disaster relief organization is called Gideon's Charge. So you might as well read the story about Gideon and, break it down, do a little deep dive and stuff like that, and read the full story of Gideon instead of just the highlights that are discussed in the mainstream church and stuff like that. Because I know, going through church, I don't know that I've ever really, just based off church, I don't know that I've really ever heard the full story of Gideon at church. It's always been like a snippet here and a snippet there and like a highlight from the actual event that was brought up. But yeah, today we're going to talk about the whole doggone story.
yeah, I've never heard it in the mainstream churches. I didn't until getting to this walk. I had never heard anybody address it. I had read through it maybe once, just on my own,
Mm-hmm.
just cruising through scripture, but um, yeah, it's pretty intense, man.
It is. It's metal, man. It's metal.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into Gideon's charge, let's what else? Oh yeah, if you want to, sorry, I just had a brain fart there for a second. But before we get into Gideon's charge, if you want to sign up to give your yeah, what, 2 minutes into it and we're already starting to talk about poop again.
Yeah, what's okay. All right. We do need a referee.
We do. If you want to sign up to give your testimony, then shoot us an email at exiledstrangers@proton.me. That's exiledstrangers@proton.me. And you can sign up, give your testimony, and it'll be 100% anonymous. And yeah. So with that being said, do we have any other housekeeping notes we need to
All right, I'm trying to get
announce?
my
I felt like there
camera
was something else.
my camera's having a seizure over here. I'm trying to get it to stop. We'll get it.
They can't see you anyway.
There we go. There we go. It was driving me nuts.
Oh, is that a focus?
Yeah, it started again. It keeps whatever.
I wonder if it's the lack of light that does that. But anyway, people on the podcast, if they're just listening, you have no idea what's even going on right now. But if you're watching, then you understand that nobody's struggling with the camera.
Yeah, I'm being a big baby about it. And
it's all
okay.
good, dude.
We're going to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll work. If the camera just falls off, then it's because nobody was messing with it. So, the story of Gideon starts in Judges 6. Now, are you going to be reading from the Septuagint?
I don't know that it varies too much. I'm probably going to read out of the scriptures. It's a smoother read, but
yeah.
Let's let each other know if we see something in the Septuagint, and we'll dig into that.
Yeah. So usually, during Sabbath and Wednesday Bible studies and stuff like that, nobody will read from the scriptures or I mean, sometimes the Septuagint or the Apostolic Polyglot, but whatever he's reading, I'll read a different text usually to see if there's any mismatches and stuff like that, or if there's any interesting points that are different between the two, because you do notice differences between Septuagint and the Masoretic text, and usually it's it differs during important parts. At least that's what I've noticed, or at least interesting parts.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm so partial to the Septuagint typically. This one, I don't know. We'll find out if I'm incorrect. If there's some big differences, I'm sure we'll run into one or two. It's just the Septuagint, I like the Brenton I think it's pretty accurate for what we have, but the these and thous, it just drives me crazy sometimes. So
it's less than the King James, that's for sure. It's easier to read than King James.
Slightly. Yeah, slightly.
Yeah.
It's like it didn't fully get bred out of that line of talking yet, There's still a little.
Yeah.
It still had some twitches going on.
Yeah, yeah. The people for King James, the ones that created the King James, I just view like pretentious a-hole for some
Yeah,
reason when it
they're
comes
like,
to them. It's like,
they're
like,
like,
oh yeah, the plebs can read it now, but good luck.
we got him on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. So Midian oppresses Yasharel. You want to kick it off?
Yep. Yeah. So
Cool.
starting in Judges chapter 6. And it reads, And the children of Yasharel did evil in the eyes of Yahweh. And Yahweh gave them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. And again, we're going to rehash this real quick. Yasharel are just, it's those in covenant with the Father. If you're in covenant, especially today,
Yep.
if you have faith and belief in the Messiah and you are walking in his ways, you are Yasharel. Okay?
And if you're not in faith or covenant with the Messiah and you're not walking in his ways, you're not Yasharel.
Ooh,
Just
man.
make that clear.
That is a great point. A great point, man. I know a
Thanks,
whole
man.
place that's having some name confusion going on at the moment who hates our Messiah.
Absolutely.
They need to knock it off. But all right. So the children of Yasharel, they did evil in the eyes of Yah. Yah gave them over to Midian for 7 years. And the hand of Midian was strong against Yasharel, and before the faces of the Midianites, the children of Yasharel made for themselves the refuges which are in the mountains, and the caves, and the strongholds. And it came to be, whenever Yasharel had sown, that Midian would come up, and Amalek and the people of the east would come up against them, and encamp against them, and destroy the increases of the soil as far as Azah, and leave no food for Yasharel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor donkey. Okay, donkey's not food, but they they
Nope.
work the field, so that's fine. It says, For they came up with their livestock and their tents, coming in as numerous as locusts, and they and their camels were without number, and they came into the land to destroy it. Thus Yasharel was brought very low because of Midian, and the children of Yasharel cried out to Yahweh. And it came to be, when the children of Yasharel cried out to Yahweh because of Midian, that Yahweh sent a prophet to the children of Yasharel, who said to them, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of Yasharel, I have brought you up from Mitzrayim, and I brought you out of the house of bondage. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Mitzrites, and out of the hand of all your oppressors, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Do not fear the mighty ones of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. And you have not obeyed my voice. Look, this is like a reoccurring thing with Yasharel.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like praise Yah that he's so patient, like he's long suffering, and I've never really known how to look at that until, recent years, when I'm just looking at myself. The introspection will show us a lot of mysteries. And as many times as I've let him down, like he's been long suffering, like I'm hurting him, like I'm breaking his heart.
hmm
And yet he's still so kind and gentle with me. But
And which is complete opposite of how most people view like quote unquote Old Testament God. They view like Old Testament God as if he's like some just looking for any reason to destroy a nation and stuff like that. But it just like you haven't read the scripture, because these people keep doing evil. Like us as well. Like keep doing evil, and he still is very very patient with us. Like one thing that's not discussed, like okay, and Judges, the very first verse. And the children of Yasharel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Midian 7 years. It's not discussed like how long they were doing evil. Like I'm sure it wasn't like the first instance they did evil. I'm sure it was like a continuous practice and falling away of Yah's ways before they were ever punished by given into the hands of Midian. And as we see, it's like the only way to get Yasharel's act together
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
let another nation rule him for a little bit, and they're like, oh right,
So an
let's go back to
interesting,
Yah's ways.
yeah, yeah. He like this is the chastisement, and it's like if we could only embrace the heart of David, how he welcomes the chastisement so that he's corrected, and he knows that through being corrected, he's going to walk more upright with Yah, and that's the goal.
Yeah,
In verse 10 here, it says, "And I said to you, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Do not fear the mighty ones of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell, and you have not obeyed my voice." I think this is a direct connection of one of the reasons they were chastised and handed over, right? They were handed over to that fear, and then they were persecuted. It's a
yeah.
lesson for us today with you know, pick up a pebble and throw it, you're going to have it fall on some sort of idol or, something that represents one of these false gods.
And also, if he didn't correct us, that would show that he doesn't love us. Like, if he didn't correct us and correct the path we're going down,
Yeah.
then we just hit like eternal death, and then we're just cease to exist. Like, without this correction, we would just die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if he
Yeah,
didn't correct us,
absolutely.
then we wouldn't be able to spend, eternity in the kingdom.
And I want to go. I want that
Same.
kingdom to come. All right, verse 11 in chapter 6 of Judges. It says, "And the messenger of Yahweh came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezerite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress to hide it from the eyes of the Midianites. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him and said to him, Yahweh is with you, you mighty brave one. And Gideon said to him, O my master, if Yahweh is with us, why has all this come upon us? And where are all his wonders which our fathers related to us, saying, Did not Yahweh bring us up from Mitzrayim? But now Yahweh has left us and given us into the hands of Midian. And Yahweh turned to him and said, Go in this strength of yours, and you shall save Yasharel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? And he said to him, O Yahweh, with what do I save Yasharel? See, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And Yahweh said to him, Because I am with you, you shall strike the Midianites as one man. And he said to him, Please, if I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who are speaking with me. Please do not move away from here until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before you. And he said, I shall stay until you return. And Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour, and meat he put in a basket. The meat he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot. And he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree and presented it. And the messenger of Elohim said to him, Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on this rock and pour out the broth. And he did so. And the messenger of Yahweh put forth the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire went up out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the messenger of Yahweh went from his sight. And when Gideon saw that he was a messenger of Yahweh, Gideon said, O master Yahweh, for I have seen a messenger of Yahweh face to face. And Yahweh said to him, Peace be with you. Do not fear. You do not die. And Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and called it Yahweh Shalom. To this day, it is still in Ophrah of the Abiezerites. That's a tough one. Abiezerites.
In the Septuagint, it says Esdri.
That's way easier than Abiezerites.
Ephrathah of the father of Esdri.
That's way easier. Yeah. So in the same night, it came to be that Yahweh said to him, take the young bull of your father and the second bull of 7 years old, and you shall throw down the altar of Baal, and that your father has, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it. And you shall build an altar to Yahweh your Elohim on top of this rock in an orderly way, and shall take the second bull and offer an ascending offering with the wood of the image which you cut down. And Gideon took 10 men from among his servants, and did as Yahweh said to him. And it came to be, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, that he did it by night. And the men of the city arose early in the morning and saw the altar of Baal was broken down, and the Asherah that was beside it had been cut down. And the second bull was being offered on the altar which was built. And they said to each other, who has done this deed? And when they had inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, son of Joash, has done this deed. And the men of the city said to Joash, bring out your son, so that he dies, for he has broken down the altar of Baal, and because he has cut down the Asherah that was beside it. And Joash said to all who stood against him, would you plead for Baal? Would you save him? Let the one who would plead for him be put to death by morning. If he is a mighty one, let him plead for himself, because his altar has been broken down. I love the trash talking about,
Yeah.
like it's so great.
Yeah, let your little G God handle it.
Yeah, his altar's broken down, man. Why don't you let him plead for himself? It's like, yeah, you tell him, Joash. All right, 32, it says, so that day he called him Yerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he has broken down his altar. Now all Midian and Amalek and the people of the east were gathered together, and they passed over and encamped in the valley of Yizrael. Then the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Gideon, and he blew the shofar, and the Abiezerites gathered behind him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also gathered behind him. And he sent messengers to Asher and to Zebulun and to Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. Oh man, you're assembling an army now.
Mm-hmm. Get him.
And Gideon said to Elohim, if you are saving Yasharel by my hand, as you have said, see, I am placing a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you are saving Yasharel by my hand, as you have said. And it was so. And he rose early the next morning and pressed the fleece and wrung dew out of the fleece to fill a bowl with water. And Gideon said to Elohim, do not be displeased with me, and let me speak only this time. Please let me try only this time with the fleece. Please let it be dry only on the fleece, and let there be dew on all the ground. And Elohim did so that night, and it was dry on the fleece only, but there was dew on all the ground. Like, this is interesting, right? Like, he's asking for confirmation on the task that he's given, and he's not chastised for this. I mean, like,
I
what
was
does
going
it
to bring
say?
up the same point.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
I wonder, and this just popped into my head. Maybe it's dependent upon the heart posture, like because some people seem to ask for confirmation or second guess Yahweh, and then they receive severe punishment for that. Whereas others, it's like this seems to be no problem at all. So I'm thinking it might have to do with heart posture. Like with Gideon, you can see his heart posture. He's like, hey, please don't be angry. Let me just confirm this one more time. And I can relate to that, not meaning I'm questioning Yahweh whenever I'm asking confirmation, but I'm questioning myself. Is that really confirmation, or am I just imagining this, or like, are there any other factors involved? It's
Sure.
second guessing myself more than it is like questioning Yahweh. So I wonder if it has to do with the heart posture versus like somebody saying like, all right, are you sure you want this done, instead of
Yeah.
being like, please don't be mad, just let me have one more confirmation.
Yeah. Yeah. The way he approaches it, I like the humility there, you know. But what's
Yeah.
interesting too is like um, in the beginning or towards the beginning. Forgive me. Let me find it real quick. Um, well, basically,
The
like,
beginning of Judges.
well,
I mean,
yeah, I'm
the
trying to
beginning of where
see.
we started reading.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to see real quick.
You're good.
Well, basically, Gideon's like, okay, like, why has all this happened to us? If you know, if if this is really you, yeah, like, why has all this come upon us? You know, we were related this message from our forefathers that you saved them from Mitzrayim. Like, where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's the question that he's asking. And even then he's not chastised. He's asking a genuine question, I believe, you know. And this is like,
6:13.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he said, did not Yahweh bring us up from Mitzrayim? But now Yahweh has left us and given us into the hands of Midian. And he's kind of lamenting, and he's like, I guess he's like coming to terms with what's going on, because no doubt they're under like grief, you know, from all the
Yeah.
oppression. It sounds pretty horrible. I mean, he's having to hide just like, you know, um, processing the wheat in the wine press, but
Right.
you know, it's just he's also making peace with this too, because if you think where he's at, he's, you know, slightly removed from these great wonders and everything that happened in the wilderness that was recounted there. He didn't see that with his own eyes, you know. So this is like probably a moment where he's growing in faith as well. So to go down, like, he tore down the altar to Baal and the Asherah, um, which we should actually jump into that for a second. But he did. He
Well, the part
listened.
that
He
stuck. Oh, my
no,
bad.
my bad. No, my bad.
No, I cut you off, dude.
No. After you, sir.
It was interesting to me that he brought 10 people with him. So
Yeah,
the altar in the Asherah pole, which in the Septuagint says grove, by the way, it
yeah,
it seems like this was like a pretty big altar in Asherah pole. Like he had to bring 10 men with him, which also the 10 men could have been for the sacrifice of the bull. Because if it's 7 years old, then that's going to be a pretty doggone big bull.
yeah,
But the fact that he was able to convince, like, these were the standards of the people at the time, was to worship Baal and stuff like that. But he was able to convince 10 people, like, hey, this is wrong. Let's tear this down and do right by Yahweh.
yeah. Absolutely. And so, like, if you look at this word Asherah too, it is like grove, you know. And this
Yeah.
ties into like all these, you know, secret societies and occult practices where they make like the labyrinth, you know, it's kind of set up in
Mm-hmm.
their gardens and everything. Um,
Yeah.
it's just, it's all no bueno.
All of it.
And he's even commanded to take the wood of what he cuts down. And I'm trying to see, because it's escaping me right now, but um, is it the wood of
He
the
uses it
Asherah?
to, yeah, he uses it to
Yeah,
do the burnt offering.
yeah. It's like, take that with your stupid garden.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, so he was able to confirm what he was told. And I'm sure, like, he's about to go to war and he's about to lead a bunch of people too. So I don't see this as being a bad thing. He's just like, okay, did I hear you right? It's not questioning Yah and
Right.
his power and his strength. And like you said, he's questioning himself. He's like, did I hear you right? Like, is this, you really want me to do this? You know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's pretty interesting.
I agree.
I haven't had a moment where I've like done anything similar to this, you know. I can't, I don't know. I don't know. I guess perhaps I will have a moment where I need confirmation if Yah's like telling me to do something way out of my wheelhouse, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
all right.
Move on to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Alrighty. You want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. And Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose up early and encamped by the fountain of Harod, so that the camp of Midian was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And Yahweh said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give Midian into their hands, lest Yasharel boast against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. And now proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is afraid and trembling, let him turn back and leave Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people turned back, while 10,000 remained, which is a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, man. And what's cool is like this is just good Torah. Like from like anybody who's afraid, go home. You know?
Yeah.
Because fear
Yeah.
fear is contagious in war, you know.
Yep. Yeah. And Yahweh said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water and let me prove them for you there. And it shall be that of whom I say to you, this one goes with you, let him go with you. And if whomever I say to you, this one does not go with you, let him not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and Yahweh said to Gideon, everyone who laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, separate him from everyone who bows down on his knees to drink. Sorry, I got the hiccups, but that is hilarious. Dang, I really got the hiccups.
Yeah, you do.
That's dang. I can't even talk. That part is hilarious to me, though. He's like, dang. All right, take it over.
All right, so it is funny, right? He's like all these dog boys around here that are just sticking their face in the water. Send those weirdos home, you know. But everybody who bows his knee down and drinks the water, right? So you want me to continue reading?
Right. I think they're gone now. Hopefully. Hopefully the hiccups are gone now. If they come back, then I'll just pass it on. Dang it, go ahead.
All right, so I'll just read a couple of verses here and continue talking about this. It says, and the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. And the rest of the people bowed down to their knees to drink water. And Yahweh said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I save you, and shall give Midian into your hand. Let all the other people go, each to his place. Where we are.
What's up?
Nothing. Sorry. I had a little e-sword thing. It says, and Yahweh said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I save you, and shall give Midian into your hand. Let all the other people go, each to his place. And the people took food and their shofars in their hands. And he sent away all the rest of Yasharel, each to his tent, but held on to those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. And it came to be on that night that Yahweh said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down, go down, you and Purah, your servant, to the camp. And you shall hear what they say. And after that, let your hands be strengthened, and you shall go down against the camp. So he went down with Purah, his servant, to the edge of the formation of fives who were in the camp. And Midian and Amalek and all the people of the east were lying in the valley, as many as locusts, and their camels were as numerous as the sand by the seashore. And Gideon came, and see, a man was relating a dream to his companion, and said, see, I had a dream, and see, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and it came to the tent and struck it, so that it fell and overturned, and the tent fell down. And his companion answered and said, this is none other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, a man of Yasharel. Elohim has given Midian and all the camp into his hand. And it came to be, when Gideon heard this dream related, and its interpretation, that he bowed himself down. And he returned to the camp of Yasharel and said, Arise, for Yahweh has given the camp of Midian into your hand. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and he put shofars into the hands of all of them, with empty jars and torches inside the jars. And he said to them, Watch me and do likewise, and see, when I come to the edge of the camp, do as I do. And I shall blow with the shofar, I and all those with me. Then you shall also blow with the shofar round about all the camp, and say, For Yahweh and for Gideon. And Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, as they had but newly posted the watch. And they blew with the shofars and broke the jars that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew with the shofars and broke the jars and held the torches in their left hands and the shofars in their right hands for blowing. And they cried, A sword for Yahweh and for Gideon. And each stood in his place round about the camp, and all the army ran and cried out and fled. And the 300 blew the shofars, and Yahweh set the sword of each one against the other throughout all the camp. And the army fled to Bethshita towards Shererah, as far as the border of Abel Meholah by Tabath. And the men of Yasharel were called from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh and pursued Midian. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim, saying, Come down to meet Midian and capture from them the watering places as far as Bethbara and the Yarden. So all the men of Ephraim were called and captured the watering places as far as Bethbara and the Yarden. And they captured 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, and killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb. And Zeeb they killed at the winepress of Zeeb while they pursued Midian. And they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon beyond the Yarden. Bro. It gets intense.
That's pretty sick. Yeah. Yeah. I still have the hiccups, by the way.
Yeah, are you okay?
I don't know what's happening. I think so. I don't like nothing. I kept muting my mic so that way nobody heard the hiccups, but man, I feel like a child.
I sit you on my lap and pat your back until they stop.
Oh my goodness,
dude, sometimes they get me and I just can't get rid of them.
Dude, I don't know. I can't remember the last time I've had hiccups this persistent.
Oh man.
Oh man.
So what's crazy about this?
Sick.
Yeah, right. So they blow their shofars, right? And they break the jars. They lift up the torches in the left hand. They're holding their shofars in their right hand. And a bunch of dudes fled, but a bunch of dudes turned their swords on one another, right? So the camp is just basically killing itself off. It's just wild. And then they chase them down. They call the other tribes while they have them on the run. They're like, "Let's get them, boys!" And Oreb and Zeeb get beheaded, and they bring their heads to Gideon, which is like, that's pretty hardcore.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's like, here, which, like, there's more to that than what you initially think. It's not just like cutting off his head and then walking over to Gideon and then handing it to him. It's like, no, but cut off his head, put it on my saddle, ride all the way to Gideon. Like, you have to travel with it.
Yeah.
Which, I'm looking at this map. You want me to pull up this map so people can kind of get like an idea?
Sure.
I love maps. Like, I was telling nobody about this before we started. Like, I absolutely love maps, and it just makes it easier for me to get like a better visual and stuff like that. So here, right here in Gad is where this I think that's where the battle occurred. The Midianites. Oh wait, no. Sorry, the battle occurred over here because there's Gideon's camp, and then there's Midianite right there, and then the Midianites fled all the way down to here, which is
Yep.
like that's a long ways.
Bro, that's
Like
far. Yeah.
just reading it, they don't. Oh, they do actually give like a key right there, which is oh, okay. That's at least 100 miles.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty darn close right there, 100 miles.
Yeah,
Man, and then that's not easy terrain either. They crossed over the Jordan. They go through, like, if you look at the contours on that map, like
yeah.
they're going
Those
through some
bumps are mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's like legs must be just on fire.
Oh yeah,
We got
yeah.
to get away from these
But
dudes with the horns.
yeah. One thing that doesn't make sense. Oh well, hold on. Before we get into that, you were mentioning like they blew the shofars and then they turned the swords on each other.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a? I remember you brought it up before, but it was like a frequency.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah.
Crimson
Yeah.
Mist.
That's exactly it. So there was an operation done by a three-letter agency of the US's. Um, and it's Freedom of Information Act. It's a little hard to find these days, but the Rwanda massacre in the early 90s, they basically like had these two opposing tribes, and I forget the names of them. I think it was something like the Houthis and something else. Something sounded
Yeah,
similar,
that's
but
familiar.
the Houthis and the Tutsis or something like that. They basically pumped their society with a bunch of propaganda for like 8 to 9 months or so, and then they had everybody gathered around the airstrip. And as a couple planes took off, one plane hung back, and as these documents read, it had a device in there that sent out a frequency, right? And this frequency caused the basically the Rwanda massacre to take place. People were hacking each other up with machetes. I've seen some of the footage from it. They were like climbing water towers and jumping off, like they were just going insane. Um, Interesting thing though is because this is proven in Scripture. So whether you call this a conspiracy theory or not, I mean, Scripture already proves that the frequencies caused by these shofars cause the enemy camp to turn swords on each other. In this case, we have modern technology basically doing the same thing. In the mid 80s, there was a professor at one of these main colleges, and I can't find anything about her anymore. It's like gone off the old interweb.
Hmm.
But she found the frequencies that cause different emotions. Like she can cause people to feel euphoric. She can cause people to love, to be sad, to be a little agitated, or to all like go all out hate. They can also
Yeah.
cause people to have common flu symptoms. Um, Keep that in mind. What we
Hmm.
just experienced over the last, what was it, like 5 years ago or so? Um,
Something like
any,
that.
yeah. So
Wow.
it
It felt like it just happened.
Yeah, I think everybody's still got the toilet paper derangement syndrome, but
Yeah.
um, I know that like this is what's interesting. If you don't mind, can I get into my dream a little bit?
Do it. Do it. You know I'm
All
just gonna
right.
be over here hiccuping.
Okay. so so I had never heard about Operation Crimson Mist or any of this. Okay. Um, and I had a dream one night, and I won't get into all the details, but I'll just give a quick summary. It's basically I was in a motel room, and like I was laying in the bed, and some family members were also sleeping in the bed, and my dad was like over by the door, and we hear this alarm going off, this like siren, kind of like an air raid siren, but kind of different. I don't know. It got our attention. He's like looking out there, and Anyways, he goes out of the door, and I get up and I follow after him. I don't know what I was trying to do, give him some backup or something, or just to go investigate. And get out there. It's a completely empty parking lot, and it's just grass fields in front of us, and the sirens coming from like my right side up above, and I look, and there's a tree line there, and there's a cell tower. And this cell tower, it was coming from a speaker on the cell tower. And then as soon as I looked at it, the siren stopped, and it just said system software update over and over. And I woke up. Here's the thing, like, nothing crazy happened in this dream, but it, like, my emotions and what I was feeling in this dream were like extremely concerned, like it was like of imminent danger.
Hmm.
And so I woke up and I was praying to Yahweh, and I was like, okay, this dream felt significant. I was like, I have no idea what it means. This was super odd, but can you please show me what this means? Because if it is significant, I really need to know the meaning, and because otherwise, why would he have given it? And, if this isn't from you, Yah, just let me forget about it. And not an hour later, I'm having my coffee, and I pull up my phone on YouTube, and I see the Rwanda massacre as like the thumbnail, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I go down these rabbit trails, and I open it up, and then it gets into Crimson Mist, and it starts explaining what had happened using frequency. And I'm like, gosh, that's crazy. And I was praying again. I was like, yeah, is this like related? Is this related? Because I didn't have a direct relation yet. And then later on that day, through one of these fellowship groups, someone posted a photo of the chain link fence around a cell tower, and it said on there like Pfizer 5G. And again, like, this is that thing. Look, I used to climb cell phone towers and put up antennas. Like, 5G operates on stuff that we don't communicate on. That's a whole other jam going on there. We had no idea what we were doing. And by the way, we were putting those up back in like 2014, 2015. So,
Yeah, I remember
they've
them
been
being a thing like in high school, and I graduated in like 2013. Yeah, they've been around for a while now. While you were talking, I did a quick Google search for Operation Crimson Mist. The only thing you can find with the words, there's two locations where you can find out about Crimson Mist: Al Jazeera News and Pinterest. Those are the only
okay.
two places that I could find talking about Crimson Mist.
Well, if anybody's interested in searching that out, also try searching the Rwanda massacre. The documentary that I saw that someone put together talked all about Crimson Mist, but it was shaped as something else. You know what I mean? So you might be able to find it through there. That leads me to this. Okay, I think that there is a serious warning ahead of us for this kind of same thing to happen in a much bigger sense, even in the book of 4 Ezra. Oh, I should have had this queued up, but I didn't. So let me find it real quick.
Well, while you're looking up that, just like even further proof that frequencies are a thing that affect like living beings, is that if you have two different greenhouse, and this was a study done in Japan like years ago, I believe. But if you have two different greenhouses, and so I'm gonna apologize for the hiccups ahead of time. Still plagued by them, dude.
Oh, it's fun.
If you have
man.
two different
It's fun.
greenhouses, and in one greenhouse, you're just like yelling at the plants. You're like, "You guys are no good. You suck." Like cussing them out, all that type of stuff. And then the other greenhouse, you have like, "Oh, such lovely plants. I love you guys so much." And you go through and just pet the leaves like they're little pets and stuff like that. The ones that you treat positively will grow better and yield more than the ones that you yell at and scream at and cuss them out and stuff like that. It's a study that's been done over and over and over again, and it has the same results every single time.
That's so wild.
It's insane. There's
So
also another study where they had 2 cups of water.
yeah.
One they wrote love on the cup. The other one they wrote hate on the cup. And then they froze the water and then they examined the ice structure underneath the microscope. And the one that had love on it had like just beautiful like uniform crystalline structure, and then the one that had hate on it was like jagged edge spikes, not uniform, and all that type of stuff.
It's
Pretty
so
interesting.
it's so incredible, right? It really shows us like the power of our words. My sister did that little experiment with 2 pieces of bread, and
Mm.
she put them in Ziploc bags. There was like it was controlled, and like one I guess she would just talk crap to, and the other one she would read scripture to, and like the one she talked crap to got all moldy, and the other one was like, I don't know, it looked good, man. Like I'd still eat that bad boy. Um,
Wow, that's cool.
so I found in 4 Ezra chapter 6, around verse 23, it says, "And the shofar shall give a sound." And this is consummation of times, what this is talking about. "And the shofar shall give a sound, which when every man hears, they shall be suddenly afraid. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run." Um, you know, I don't have like an immense amount of proof. I'm just saying, hey, yo, there's a lot of other people who have had a very similar dreams, kind of adding and showing different aspects to what I had and this whole thing. There's a guy who's had a
Yeah.
dream about hearing the siren going off and people coming through like this mall area with knives and like fingernail files, whatever, just tearing each other apart. And then the siren would go off and everybody would be confused and kind of standing there like, what happened? Why am I here? Why am I like covered in blood? And then it would go
Mm-hmm.
off again and they would go back. And predictive programming, right? Like the movie
Yep.
Kingsman, the movie
I was just thinking that.
yep. The
Yep.
movie is it Cell? I think it's Cell.
I
Like
don't
what's
know.
yeah, there's quite a few out there that predict this. Um I don't think it's going to affect any of Yah's people, right? Like I think he's going to protect his people as far as they won't be given over to this like a you know, bloodlust that's caused by frequency, I suppose you could say. But
Yeah.
anyways, hey,
And
heads
that's why
up
you
people.
carry an extra mag.
Yeah. And a box of Band-Aids.
Yep.
All right.
Man.
So Judges chapter 8. Chapter 8. Oh, and by the way, hey, shofars
Mm-hmm.
are weapons that we can use today. Like they will scatter the enemy. Like whenever
Yeah.
anything crazy's happening, like or I feel like, gosh, there's just like, you know, demonic attacks come on people. Like they happen to those in covenant walking. They're the ones that they want to cause to stray away. They don't care about
Right.
the people that are already, just doing all the bad stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll just pick up my shofar and I'll just, you know, rip out some shofar blasts as loud as I can and just praise Yah. He likes it when we make a joyful
Yeah.
noise to him. So,
Well, I gotta admit, my shofar is not joyful at first. I still gotta practice. Like the first like 2 minutes of the shofar sounds like a dead, wounded animal, and then I find the right positioning, and then it sounds like a shofar. So
yeah.
my shofar brings fear for different reasons. Somebody thinks like animals are dying. Like who's being tortured over there?
Hey, well,
Just my shofar.
just my shofar.
Yep.
All right. Chapter 8. It says, "And the men of Ephraim said to him, What is this you have done to us by not calling us when you went to fight with Midian? And they contended with him sharply. And he said to them, What have I done as compared with you? Are the gleanings of Ephraim not better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? Elohim has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeeb. And what was I able to do as compared with you? And when he had said that, their rage toward him subsided. And Gideon and the 300 men who were with him came to the Yarden, passing over, wary, yet pursuing. And he said to the men of Sukkot, please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are weary, and I am pursuing Zebah and Salmunna, sovereigns or kings of Midian. But the leaders of Sukkot said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army? And Gideon said, because of this, when Yahweh has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I shall tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. Dang. Dang, Gideon. Gideon's...
Like, dang, yeah. Also, like, he couldn't have pleaded with him just a little bit more. He's like, nope. All right,
he's
then.
Like, all right, boys, you made your choice.
Yep.
All right, verse 8, it says, and he went up from there to Penuel and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkot had answered him. So he spoke also to the men of Penuel, saying, when I come back in peace, I shall break down this tower. And Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor, and their armies with them, about 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east. Now those who had already fallen were 120,000 men who drew the sword. And Gideon went up by the way of those who dwell in tents on the east of Nobah and Yogbaha. Gosh, these words.
I don't know, man.
Yogbaha.
Yeah. Yogbaha.
And he struck the camp while the camp was at ease. And Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and captured the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and shuddered the entire army. And Gideon, son of Joash, returned from battle, from the ascent of Heres, and captured a youth of the men of Sukkot and questioned him. So the youth wrote down for him the leaders of Sukkot and its elders, 77 men. And he came to the men of Sukkot and said, see, Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to the men who are weary? And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Sukkot a lesson.
Man, Gideon is metal.
Yeah. And he broke down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. Dang. And he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, how were the men whom you killed at Tabor? Or how were the men whom you killed at Tabor? So they answered, they were like you. Each one looked like the son of a king. And he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As Yahweh lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you. And he said to Yether, his firstborn, rise, kill them. But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise yourself and fall on us, for as a man is, so is his might. So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent ornaments which were on their camels' necks. So the men of Yasharel, I know, right? Taking the crescent ornaments.
Crescent, yeah. Like crescent moon, I'm assuming?
It must be, yeah. Let's see here. Ornaments.
Which, yeah, like also, if you're Gideon's son, you're probably, like, if you're reading this, you know, like much later after, you know, this has been written and stuff like that, Gideon's son must be thinking, like, man, you couldn't have left that part out? I was just a kid.
Yeah. He's like, come on, Dad, I was afraid, man. Like, why are you gonna, like, none of these fair maidens are gonna...
Yeah, I'm getting called out for eternity.
Yeah, none of these fair maidens are going to trust me to be a protector. Like,
Yeah.
come on. He's
And it says
probably,
before he was still a youth. So what was that? Before 13?
yeah, he's probably really young, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the
Yeah.
Septuagint says he was yet very young. So that's crazy. Gideon's
So
like, come hither, boy. Come kill these two
yeah.
kings.
Like, come here, 6-year-old.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, we'll give him a pass for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So the men of Yasharel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you and your son, also your son's son, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon said to them, "I do not rule over you, nor does my son rule over you. Yahweh does rule over you." And Gideon said to them, "I have a request to make of you, that each of you give me the ring from his spoil." For they had rings of gold, because they were Ishmaelites. And they said, "We shall certainly give them." And they spread out a garment, and each man threw into it the ring from his spoil. And the weight of the gold rings that he requested was 1,700 pieces of gold, besides the crescent ornaments, and the pendants, and the purple robes which were on the kings of Midian, and besides the chains that were around the camels' necks. And Gideon made it into a shoulder garment and set it up in his city, Ophrah. And all Yasharel went whoring after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his house. Thus Midian was humbled before the children of Yasharel, and they lifted their heads no more. And the land had rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon had 70 sons, who were his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he gave him the name Abimelech. And Gideon, son of Joash, died at a good old age, and was buried in the burial site of Joash's father in Ophrah of the Abiezerites. And it came to be, when Gideon was dead, that the children of Yasharel again went whoring after the Baals, and made Baal Berith their mighty one. Thus the children of Yasharel did not remember Yahweh their Elohim, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies round about, nor did they show loving commitment to the house of Jerubbaal, Gideon, according to all good which he did for Yasharel. So very interesting,
Man,
right? Like Gideon makes this shoulder garment. It's an ephod, right?
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I don't understand why he made that and created like a snare for that part just sticks out and I don't understand.
it's basically referenced as a priestly garment, right? This is like
Mm-hmm.
what would be on the priest, and the context here is it gets like sad because it's like, so he did this, right? And it became a snare to Gideon, or a stumbling block, rather, to Gideon and his house. It seems to be that there was an immense amount of pride built up after this encounter. You know, the same
Hmm.
reason Yah said, "You're only going to take with you 300 dudes," so that Yasharel doesn't say, "We did this with our own hands." I think
Right.
this was the fear that Gideon and his men would raise up in pride, and it came to be that Gideon did, unfortunately. And at the end,
Even go ahead.
I was just going to say, at the end, like, they didn't show loving commitment to the house of Jerubbaal or Gideon, according to all the good which he did for Yasharel. Like, he was forgotten, you know.
I wonder if it was
Um,
because of the pride though. The like
I
you know how somebody like does something fantastic, like they did a good deed and stuff like that, and then they let that go to their head, and it's like they're always living as if like they're or like okay, some of the sad like I remember this one guy that I used to be an electrician with. He would always reminisce about this like how well he did at football in high school, like as if that was his peak moment, and he kept reminiscing on that, as if like his life has been over after that. Like he hasn't done anything great since that high school football game. That I
Oh
wonder if
man.
that was kind of it. Is like this happened for Gideon, and then he's like, "Cool, I've peaked. I'm going to reminisce, and I'm going to remind people about this all the time." And I wonder if the people just got tired of. I mean, I'm inferring a lot here, or not inferring, but
Sure.
I'm reaching a little bit. But it seems like that could have been a possibility. It was like people just got tired of hearing it from Gideon. He was like, "Yeah, cool, great, let's move on."
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And so when he lifted this up, right, and set it up in his city. So he set up like an idol,
Yeah,
um, kind of like a memorial to himself, I guess. I don't know, and Yasharel then went whoring after it there. So which anytime this is mentioned, like when Yasharel goes whoring, this is like spiritual idolatry for the most part.
yeah,
I mean, there is physical whoring and fornication that is definitely like a no go, but in this case, it's spiritual adultery. Like they idolize this thing that was lifted up in the city. So yeah, it was a stumbling block to Gideon, no doubt, but it also caused Yasharel to stumble. And then he even says, as soon as like he was dead, like they went after the Baals again. You know,
yeah,
um, interesting that he had 70 sons and he had a ton of wives. It sounds like he
yeah.
became like the guy in the city. Like, oh, you want to buy a parcel of land? You got to go talk to old man Gideon. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. The 70 sons with the wives and the concubines. My wife has been making a joke lately about getting a second wife so she can do the dishes.
oh my gosh, dude.
I was like, that's not a wife. That's called a slave, honey.
That's a servant lady.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I've ever heard anything that it's like sounding off alarms. I'm like, danger, Will Robinson, danger! Don't do that.
Oh yeah, dude. Like I guarantee you she'd be down for a second wife way before I'm down for a second wife. That's for sure. Oh
and
man.
and if I know her like I think I do, she would never be down. you know,
Only as jokes. Yeah.
she's just trying
Only
to
as jokes.
she's trying to do the old hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Hey, can you do the dishes? you know, like
Okay. Now okay. All right. So here's
my
where
bad.
I am at with the dishes. No. You're good. You're good. She's going to hear this and she's going to laugh. Okay. I would do the dishes if it didn't look like a nuclear bomb went off every time she cooked something. Like I don't know how she uses. I even told her I was like, I'll do the dishes, but you can't do this. Like you can't do what you're doing in this kitchen, dude. There will be food on the cabinet doors somehow, and dude, there's it's. I'm gonna take a picture of it next time and send it to you. I'm gonna take a
Yeah,
picture of what the kitchen looks like after she cooks, and then I'm gonna take a picture of what the kitchen looks like after I cook. Like,
yeah.
there's a French term called mise en place. It means everything's in place. Like it's orderly, it's in place. Like you get all your ingredients ready before you start cooking, and then you clean as you go. She ain't never heard
yeah,
of it. She ain't never heard of it.
man. Well,
It's impressive how dirty that kitchen gets.
I
Not
bet the
dirty, but
food.
messy.
I bet the food tastes real good though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
it,
That's
yeah,
that's how you know it was that food was made with passion. There's sauce everywhere. Yeah,
yeah.
celebration.
She didn't know. She didn't really know how to cook until we got married. Just because, like, I mean, her parents never really made her as she grew up, and then when she was like living on her own, going through college and stuff, she just ate girl dinner all the time, which is I
What's
don't
girl
know.
dinner?
It's like granola and yogurt and like macaroni and cheese and like box macaroni and cheese. It's just like
Yeah.
they peck away at stuff throughout the day instead of like having
Uh,
steak and mashed potatoes and asparagus, and it's instead of like a full blown meal, it's just like um a potpourri of snack food.
Oh, that's interesting. You see, I don't know how anybody could do that. I need like steak, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's less messy too if you
Yeah.
like cook over an open fire. And
Same.
just be
Yeah.
manly, you know?
Yeah, I would cook, and it just tastes better cooking like on a grill, like on a charcoal grill and stuff. It just, I don't know. What was it? When we moved to this house, I didn't have a grill for a while, and then I was just cooking like steaks in the pan on the stove, and then I got like this little tiny, little small grill, just enough to do like maybe 2 or 3 steaks at a time. And dude, it's so much better.
Yeah, I remember
It's so much better.
when we were out in North Carolina, one of those trips we made out there
Hmm.
when we were cooking over the fire. Like we cook lamb chops and some little steaks.
Oh yeah, we did lamb chops, the steak. I mean, you were the oh, I was gonna say VIP, but that's not what it
No,
was.
that wasn't it. I was
MVP.
not.
Yeah, you were the MVP
Uh,
on that one. Yeah,
bro, I don't know.
nobody over here cooked everything over the fire. You did the sausages, you did the steaks, you did the lamb chops. Yeah, we
Well,
were
I'll tell you
feasting in the
what.
disaster zone.
Yeah, but with all those impatient people around the fire, some of them got some raw meat. You know. And another thing, when we were done, I don't think I had any hair left on my knuckles or my hand. Like it was all.
Dang, dude. Oh man, you did a fantastic job, though.
Hey,
You
thanks,
did.
buddy. Thanks, man.
No
That was
problem.
fun.
You
That was
did.
a fun night.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun. We'll have to do something not in a disaster zone like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Have you
with
seen those
contaminants.
like full blown setups where they have these metal posts around this fire pit and stuff, and then they have like these grates that'll swing into place, and then there's like a pot
Yeah,
that'll swing into place. Dude, that looks so much fun to me. I have so much oak wood we could burn. Dude, when you come up, we're gonna cook outside. We're gonna figure something
yeah,
out.
yeah, man. That's yeah, we are. We're gonna build
Yeah.
a fort,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
I'm down.
you know we cook a goat.
If you bring a goat, we're definitely cooking a goat.
I kid you not. I was looking in your area already for goats for sale. I told you this,
Yeah.
and it's happening. You know,
Did you find one?
I found quite a few. I found quite a few. I
Well,
found
if you,
some Boer goats that should be some good eating. But
I think they're just pronounced boar.
well, I like to say Boer. I feel fancy.
That works. That works. Where? What?
Is it
Well, I
really
guess you can't
Boer?
give the location here. Yeah.
Is it really Boer goats? Okay,
Yeah.
my bad. My bad. All
No,
right.
you're good. They can be Boer, dude. I'm down for Boer.
Yeah, but now I want to say Boer. So
All right. Whatever. Dude,
dang.
it's your world. I'm just living in it.
Whoa. Don't say
Whatever
that,
you want to
man.
call them, dude, I'm down.
Yummy. Dinner.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, okay, so another little side tangent real quick. The first time I lived in the state that I'm living in right now, it was like years ago. Maybe even like 10 years ago at this point. We had some sheep on that property, right? And some Muslim family contacted us and they're like, "Hey, we'd like to buy a sheep. Do you have any goats available too?" And we're like, "No, we don't have any goats, but we do have sheep." They're like, "Cool. Can we kill it on your property?" And we're like, maybe. Like, what are you guys gonna do? And then they
Yeah.
just give us a breakdown of this whole halal ritual that they're gonna do with the sheep on the property, and we're like, "Hold up, no, you cannot
Yeah.
do this. You
Yeah.
ain't doing that here."
See.
Dude, okay. So this farm I was at in Australia, right? I was out moving the animals and I was heading back to like the main it's like the commons area where the kitchen, the living room, kind of lounge area is. I was heading back there and this Toyota Camry pulls up. And I kid you not, in the backseat of this Toyota Camry is just this full-blown goat just chilling. He's just chilling in this Toyota Camry. And they
Yeah.
brought it from like one state in Australia all the way out here, all the way, like it was in this backseat for hours,
Bro,
hours just to kill
that's
this
got
goat on this farm.
that's got to be the coolest goat. You know, that
Mm-mm.
goat was tamed by the end of that drive, and then you guys go and kill it.
But what did the first half of that drive look like?
Probably pretty rough.
You know what
but,
I mean?
Yeah, probably pretty rough.
Yeah. And then the amount of poop that you have in the back seat too, or the pee, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like it's potty trained.
Yeah. Dude, but I would see, like, when I was in Afghanistan, I would see people driving with goats on their little motorbikes and stuff.
They had them strapped up too, though, didn't they?
Not strapped. They
Like
just
so they
would,
couldn't wiggle.
it was as if they were on a horse. They would just drape them across like their lap, kind of thing. You know, just.
How is it a goat is okay with that, but will literally kill itself trying to get out of a fence?
Bro, goats are different over there, man. Like they're totally cool until they just like, then they turn on you. They'll pick somebody and they'll just ram them forever. Like,
Well,
yeah,
the goats are also treated differently over there too.
yeah, that's true.
Without getting R-rated in here, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's not go down that path because I've eaten a lot of goat over there and I don't want to think about that.
Oh man. Well, we stayed off the poop topic.
Well, did we?
So yeah, well, kind of. We had that.
Yeah.
We had that joke at the beginning, but other than that, we're doing good. Oh, there was one in chapter 6. I had that question from chapter 6. I didn't understand the torches and the pots. Was that just to stop the light, like the camp from seeing the light on the torches until it was time?
I think so. So
Okay.
I think that they were concealing the light of the flame. And then so that way, all at once, the shofars blow, and all of a sudden, all these 300 men are upon them with torches round about their camp, and it completely caught them off guard. That's the most I can understand of that so far,
That would make sense then. That would
Yeah,
make
it's
sense.
kinda
'Cause
like
it would
it.
be pretty crazy to be like, you hear this crazy trumpet, see all these people now like fighting themselves, and it's your own camp, and then all of a sudden these bam, there's just
Yeah,
torches
right.
everywhere.
That'd be pretty scary,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty wild.
So I guess look, like y'all can prompt us to do some amazing things, But the thing is like anything amazing that he sends us to do, he is going to empower us. He's going to be the one that gives us the strength and the know-how to get through those situations to accomplish his will. And we have to give glory to Yah. Like a lesson learned
Yeah.
here. And I'm not saying Gideon is any different than any other human, myself included. Like we all stumble, we all have these things that we mess up on. And he messed up there at the end. He like pretty much created an idol. But but if we go back, like let's take this and learn the lesson that whatever Yah prompts us to, like we give glory to Yah, and Yah will exalt us as he sees fit, and we don't strive for it or lift ourselves up in that matter. But
I can give you a perfect example of that. So I used to do jiu-jitsu and stuff, and I want to get back into it and stuff, but I used to do competitions all the time. Like any competition that was within like 3 hours driving distance of me, I was going to it. And I was in an area where I had like quite a few major cities within 3 hours of me. Like I had Atlanta, Knoxville, couple in Virginia, stuff like that. So there were competitions all the time. And for the longest, I was undefeated. Like I hadn't lost a single match for quite a while. And then I was going to my next, and I was at a tournament. I won the first 2 matches by submission. And then I get to the, like, in between the second and third match, I'm like, man, like, I'm, full of myself. I'm like, man, nobody can stop me in this division. Like, this weight class, this belt class, like, nobody's stopping me in this division. And then the third match, I get submitted in 14 seconds by a person I have submitted before. Like, this was a guy,
really?
like, I knew I could beat. Like, I've beaten him every single time because he was actually from a gym that was just down the road, and we would, like, cross-pollinate and train with other gyms sometimes. And I got submitted in 14 seconds by a submission that like if you've done jiu-jitsu for like 3 months, you would know how to get out of this submission. Like it should
Sure.
be like a knee-jerk reaction to just get into or get out of it. I got submitted in 14 seconds and got completely, and it wasn't like I was going around and like out loud being boastful or vocal or anything like that. This was completely like
Right.
inward. It was just
Sure.
like, I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, man, nobody's stopping me in this division. Almost mad that there wasn't even like some solid competition in that division. And then that third match, bam,
Yeah.
lights out.
Yeah. And see, but that's interesting. Like I've had similar moments where I've been humbled, and it's
Mm-hmm.
actually caused like a tremendous amount of growth past that point. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because I
yeah,
needed that.
yeah,
I was like, oh boy, it's like I don't know, like any and all training, as far as well, not any and all, but most training that I've ever been through and everything. You know what I learned? I'm like, well, I've learned there's always somebody bigger or better, that's gonna
yeah.
choke me out with my own arm, like
Yeah, or choke you out with your own gi.
yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, but well, you got any final words to say about Gideon?
No, like it's a really cool story, it
Yeah,
really is. I think it's a lot we can learn about the shofar especially, right?
yeah,
And using it as a weapon of warfare, and praising Yah, making a joyful noise to him. And what is it? Numbers 10. Numbers 10:10 says, "And in the day of your gladness, and in your appointed times, and at the beginning of your months, you shall blow the trumpets over your ascending offerings and over your sacrifices of peace offerings, and they shall be a remembrance for you before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim." And it starts off there in the very beginning, and in the day of your gladness, right? So you could do this any day, not just at the appointed times, or, make a joyful noise to Yahweh, and praise him. And that's pretty awesome. That'll make the enemy flee. But these are weapons. These are some serious weapons, and lessons learned from Gideon, that, hey, we don't do any of this in our own strength, even if you're a
yeah,
strong guy and like, you can do something physically. Well, guess what? Yah has given you the opportunities to learn and grow to that point throughout your whole life. So you still can't claim credit for it. But
absolutely. Yeah, you said it the best way possible.
hey, thanks,
Well,
man.
no problem, buddy.
All right. Hope you don't get in trouble with the wife about about the dishes.
Oh no, she knows who she married. Oh, remember, guys, if you want to sign up to give your testimony on the podcast, that's email us at exiledstrangers@proton.me. Email us at exiledstrangers@proton.me. Now, here is some closing music for this episode.
Breaking